Welcome back. Today, we'll be exploring the values, history, and unique features of 10 different Washington quarter dollar coins. Some of these coins are surprisingly valuable in today's auction market, even in circulated or dirty condition. Let's get started. Our first coin is the 1966 Washington quarter, a piece of history that's definitely caught the attention of collectors due to its unique condition, specifically one with lamination damage. Now, you might be wondering, what is lamination damage and why does it affect the coin's value? Well, let's break it down. The 1960s were an important time in American history, and the 1966 Washington quarter reflects the era's significant transitions. The Washington quarter series, introduced in 1932, features the iconic image of George Washington, the first president of the United States. The quarter's design, created by artist John Flanagan, has remained a symbol of American patriotism for nearly a century. In the 1960s, the quarter continued its long tradition, with coins being struck in silver until 1964. However, by 1965, the U.S. Mint transitioned to a copper-nickel-clad composition to reduce costs. By 1966, the Mint had fully adopted the new clad composition, which consisted of a layer of pure copper sandwiched between two layers of nickel. This change, along with the growing demand for coins, led to some production imperfections, one of which was lamination damage. Lamination damage occurs when the metal layers of a coin separate during the minting process, leaving cracks, peeling, or flakes of metal on the surface of the coin. However, when a coin like this 1966 Washington quarter experiences lamination damage, the surface is marred by these defects. Lamination errors can make a coin appear worn or scratched, but the key difference is that these imperfections are a result of a manufacturing fault rather than wear and tear from circulation. The total mintage of the 1966 Washington quarter was 1.9 billion coins. This was a high mintage year for the U.S. Mint, which means that the 1966 Washington quarter is not necessarily rare on its own. However, the rarity comes into play when considering coins with unique errors, such as those with lamination damage. These pieces are far less common, and finding one in a collection can be a rare treat for collectors who seek error coins. So, what is the value of a 1966 Washington quarter with lamination damage? Well, the value can vary greatly depending on the severity of the damage and the overall condition of the coin. Typically, a 1966 Washington quarter in average circulated condition is worth around $198,000 due to its copper-nickel composition. However, a coin with lamination damage may fetch a higher price, especially if it's in good condition otherwise. For a 1966 Washington quarter in lamination damage condition, collectors might be willing to pay anywhere from $200,000 depending on the uniqueness of the lamination error and how prominent it is. Coins with larger or more noticeable laminations might see even higher values at auction, especially if they are well preserved despite the damage. Additionally, certain buyers who specialize in mint errors may pay a premium for these unique examples. Now, why do collectors care so much about errors like lamination damage? The truth is, error coins have a certain mystique and allure. Coins with errors often carry an air of mystery because they represent a flaw in the production process. Collectors see these errors as a reminder that even the mint, which is responsible for producing millions of coins, can make mistakes. As a result, error coins can be highly collectible, and in some cases, they can fetch values far beyond what you'd expect based on the coin's normal mintage. Moreover, the Washington quarter series is one of the most collected series in the United States. Many collectors focus on completing full sets of Washington quarters, which means any unique variation or error in this series will naturally attract attention. If you're fortunate enough to come across a 1966 Washington quarter with lamination damage, it could be an interesting addition to your collection or a coin that increases in value over time. In conclusion, the 1966 Washington quarter, without a mint mark, especially with lamination damage, stands as a testament to the fascinating world of error coins. While it may not be as valuable as some other rare Washington quarters, its unique flaw makes it a sought-after piece for collectors interested in minting imperfections. And for those lucky enough to find one, it could be worth more than you might think. Next up, we have the 1967 Washington quarter with a large date without a mint mark. This coin is often sought after by collectors, particularly those interested in the unique characteristics that can set one coin apart from another. But what exactly makes the 1967 large date Washington quarter special, and how does its condition affect its value? Let's take a closer look. The 1960s were a time of great change in the United States, and the minting of coins during this period reflected both those changes and the ongoing development of American currency. The Washington Quarter series, which had been in circulation for more than 30 years by the 1960s, was still very much in demand. 1967 was an interesting year for the U.S. Mint, as it marked the second year after the switch to a clad composition for many coins. The clad quarters made of copper and nickel were meant to reduce the cost of producing coins, which had risen sharply due to the increasing price of silver. 1967 also saw the introduction of the large date format for the Washington Quarter, which made the year on the coin appear larger than the typical date style. This slight design change would go unnoticed by many, but for collectors it became a defining feature of the year. The standout feature for the 1967 quarter is the large date. The 6 in the year 1967 is significantly larger than in other years, making the coin visually distinct. While it may seem like a small detail, this large date is something collectors have come to appreciate. For many, the large date coins from 1967 are desirable because they represent a shift in minting that occurred during the era. While not rare, these coins are often sought after by those building complete sets of Washington quarters. The total mintage of the 1967 Washington Quarter was a staggering 1.8 billion coins, produced without a mint mark at the Philadelphia Mint. Since this was such a high mintage year, the 1967 Washington Quarter, in regular condition, isn't particularly rare. However, the large date feature sets it apart from other years, making it an appealing addition to certain collections. Coins from 1967, without a mint mark, are not as rare as those from other years with lower mintage, but it is the presence of the large date that distinguishes them. Finding these coins in high-grade condition, especially in good condition or better, can be challenging, which is why they are sought after by collectors. In good condition, a 1967 Washington Quarter is valued around $92,000. The value is relatively modest, especially given the high mintage, but the large date feature can increase its appeal. In good condition, the coin remains accessible to most collectors, and prices don't skyrocket unless the coin is in higher grades or features additional error characteristics. However, in higher grades such as fine, very fine, or even extremely fine, the value of the 1967 Washington Quarter increases. A coin in very fine condition could be worth $88,000 depending on market conditions and the specific demand at the time of sale. Collectors may also find that the large date variety can sometimes fetch a slight premium over the standard 1967 quarters due to the distinctiveness of the design. But, due to the high mintage and the relatively common nature of the coin, it would not be considered as valuable as rarer varieties or other era coins. For collectors, the 1967 Washington Quarter's large date offers an interesting piece of minting history. While not an era coin, it is a variation that adds value to a complete collection. Washington Quarters from the 1960s are often popular because they fall within the time period of significant changes in U.S. coinage. Many collectors of 20th century coins will specifically look for the large date quarters as a way of marking a subtle but noteworthy transition in minting practices. Era coins, while often far more valuable, aren't the only coins that attract attention. Variations like the large date 1967 Washington Quarter are still valuable, particularly to those interested in the nuances of coin production history. As with any collectible coin, the condition and preservation of the piece play an important role in its value. Ultimately, the 1967 Washington Quarter large date, while not rare in the traditional sense, is still a desirable coin for those looking to complete a set of Washington Quarters or add some unique pieces to their collection. Next up, the year 1969 was a time of technological advancements, with the space race in full swing and cultural shifts occurring across the United States. The 1969 Washington Quarter is part of the continuation of the Washington series, but it carries the hallmark of a later 1960s coinage showing signs of wear but maintaining a clearer design than coins from earlier years. The 1969 large date, much like the 1967 variety, offers a noticeable difference in its design compared to the small date version. This gives the coin an edge in the market due to its collectability for those seeking these subtle variations. A coin in very fine condition shows moderate wear, with the design still clearly visible. The date and mint year will remain legible, but there may be some wear on the raised portions and some dullness in the design. The larger numbers for the year help distinguish this coin from its smaller date counterparts. The 1969 Washington quarter, with over 500 million pieces minted, is not a particularly rare coin. However, because of the appeal of the large date variety and its relatively high demand among collectors, it remains a sought-after item. In very fine condition, the 1969 Washington quarter with the large date can fetch anywhere between $100,000 depending on the specific auction and the demand for Washington quarter varieties. While not extremely rare, the large date's distinctiveness gives it an edge in value over standard issues. Next up we have the 1984 Washington quarter dollar, and this one features a very interesting P-mint mark era now. The Washington quarter has been a staple of U.S. coinage for decades, but it's the era variety of this coin that catches the attention of collectors and investors alike. Let's break this coin down. The Washington quarter, which was first introduced in 1932 to commemorate George Washington's 200th birthday, has had various design changes over the years. For this particular coin, minted in 1984, the obverse still features John Flanagan's famous portrait of George Washington, facing left. The reverse side shows the eagle, perched proudly with its wings spread, holding an olive branch and arrows. Now, typically, the 1984 Washington quarter was produced at both the Denver and San Francisco mints, but this coin was struck at the Philadelphia mint and carries the P mint mark, which, in itself, is not unusual for the era. However, the error here is significant. A small batch of 1984 quarters was mistakenly struck with the P mint mark when they were intended to be unmarked. This mistake is quite rare and is a key reason why collectors value this coin higher than regular 1984 quarters. While many quarters from this time period are considered common, this error coin stands out due to the fact that mint mark errors are highly sought after in the world of numismatics. Because of this error, even in circulated and dirty condition, this coin can command a price anywhere from $37,000 depending on its specific characteristics and market demand. In circulated condition, the coin is generally valued around $5 to $10. However, the real value comes when the coin is in better shape or is graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC. In higher grades or with clean, sharp features, you might see prices climbing up to $50 or even more, depending on the rarity of the specific era. So while this coin might be a common sight in everyday change, its error adds a unique factor that's impossible to ignore. Collectors love finding these types of mistakes, and as always, rarity drives demand. Next up, let's talk about the 1988 Washington quarter dollar with a P mint mark. While this coin doesn't feature a mint mark error, it's still a key piece in understanding the evolution of the Washington quarter design during the late 20th century. Minted in 1988, the Washington quarter continued to honor George Washington with the same portrait design as earlier years. The reverse features the iconic eagle, which has remained largely unchanged since the initial design. But in 1988, what's notable is the minting process itself. This coin was produced at the Philadelphia Mint, as indicated by the P mint mark on the reverse, which became a regular feature starting in 1980. Unlike the 1984 era coin, this 1988 quarter has no significant flaws or design mistakes. However, the 1988 issue is still quite popular because it was part of the series that came after the introduction of the P mint mark for Philadelphia minted quarters, which was a change that collectors were paying attention to. Coins like this 1988 Washington quarter are typically found in circulated condition, and in fine condition, this coin is worth around $62,000, while this is not a rare or highly valuable coin in itself. It is an important part of the series for collectors working to complete a full set of Washington quarters. Collectors of modern U.S. coinage often seek coins from specific years or mint marks, and the 1988 P mint is no exception. These coins hold steady demand in the market, and while they might not be worth hundreds of dollars like rare coins from earlier decades, they still represent a solid investment for those looking to complete their collections. Next up, let's explore the 1991 Washington quarter dollar. This particular coin is of special interest due to its large date feature. combined with a rare red color shade that appears on the reverse side. The 1991 Washington quarter carries the same timeless design featuring George Washington's profile on the obverse and the bold eagle on the reverse. However, what sets the 1991 apart is the large date variety. As you can see, the digits in the year are noticeably larger than on previous years, a feature that is particularly noticeable when you compare the coin to earlier Washington quarters. This variety was part of a subtle but important change in the design as the U.S. Mint worked to standardize their coin production. Now, as we flip the coin over, you may notice a distinctive red shade on the reverse. This phenomenon is often the result of environmental factors, such as exposure to certain chemicals, heat, or other elements over time. The red toning on this coin is often referred to as environmental toning, and while it can sometimes be seen as a flaw, many collectors find it to be a unique and visually appealing characteristic. In fine condition, the 1991 Washington quarter is generally valued at about $6,000. However, the red color toning can affect its value depending on how collectors view it. Some may see the toning as an undesirable flaw, but others appreciate the unique look it gives to the coin. As such, the price could range from $200,000 if collectors find the toning interesting and attractive. Coins like this are particularly interesting to those who are building themed collections, such as a group of Washington quarters with various environmental toning effects or with other unique features like large date varieties. As always, the condition of the coin and the way it appeals to collectors play a huge role in determining its market value. Next up, let's look at the 1998 Washington quarter dollar with a P mint mark in fine condition. While this coin may seem like just another typical Washington quarter, it holds some significance when we look at its place in the larger picture of U.S. coinage history. The Washington quarter of 1998 retains the classic design elements we've come to expect: George Washington on the obverse and the eagle on the reverse. The P mint mark on the reverse indicates that this coin was minted in Philadelphia, which by the late 1990s had become the norm for quarters issued from that mint. In terms of production, the 1998 quarter was part of a massive mintage run that produced over 1 billion coins. This means that while the 1998 quarter is a staple in many collections, it's not considered particularly rare. Still, its place in the history of U.S. coins, particularly as part of the 1990s series, makes it a valuable coin for completing a full Washington quarter set. In fine condition, the 1998 Washington quarter is valued at about $56,000, making it a relatively affordable coin for most collectors. While it's not rare or highly valuable on its own, it remains an important part of U.S. coinage and holds steady demand from collectors looking to complete their. Next up, the 1986 Washington quarter is another example of the regular coinage from the mid-1980s that continued the tradition of honoring George Washington. While the 1986 quarter is not particularly rare or known for any major minting errors, it does carry the large date variety, which is an interesting feature of several coins from this era. The 1980s were a time of consistency for the Washington quarter series, and this coin is an example of the standard issue quarters that continued to circulate through the country. In addition, the 1986 coin reflects the U.S. Mint's shift towards using the P mint mark, which was introduced for quarters produced in Philadelphia. The 1986 Washington quarter follows the classic design of the series, featuring a portrait of George Washington on the obverse and an eagle in flight on the reverse. The P mint mark indicates the coin was struck in Philadelphia, and the large date feature gives the coin a slightly different look compared to the regular version of the quarter from other years. In good condition, the 1986 Washington quarter shows signs of wear but retains much of its design, with clear details still visible. The large date design makes it stand out as a collectible piece for those interested in Washington quarter varieties from this period. The mintage for the 1986 Washington quarter was substantial, with over 550 million coins produced. This high mintage makes the coin relatively common in circulation, which affects its market value. In good condition, the coin is typically worth between $30,000, with slightly higher values seen in coins that have been well preserved, though the 1986 Washington quarter is not as rare or valuable as some era coins. It still holds value for collectors of the Washington quarter series. Next up, the 1997 quarter with the P mint mark. But don't be fooled by its age, because this coin could actually be worth more than you think, especially if it's in uncirculated condition. So, let's break it down and see how much this coin could fetch at auction today. Alright, here we have the 1997 Washington quarter with the P mint mark. Minted in Philadelphia, this quarter is part of the series that started in 1932 and has been a mainstay of US coinage. The 1997 coin, like most from the late 90s, is fairly common in circulation. However, the value really increases if you have an uncirculated example. So, what makes an uncirculated coin special? Well, it means this coin has never been used in circulation and shows no signs of wear. You'll notice sharp details, brilliant luster, and the original mint finish, all of which make the coin look almost brand new. Now, for a coin like this to be considered uncirculated, it must have no noticeable wear on the high points of the design, such as George Washington's cheek and the eagle's wings. The condition is everything when it comes to determining value. In today's market, the 1997 Washington quarter with a P mint mark in uncirculated condition can sell for anywhere between $10,000 depending on its quality. Some collectors might pay a little more for a coin in exceptional condition, but it's not a high-value coin like the rare silver quarters or older Washington quarters. So, while it may not be worth hundreds or thousands like some other coins, if you have a pristine, uncirculated 1997 Washington quarter, it's definitely worth holding on to. It's always good to keep an eye out for those coins in perfect condition because they could fetch a nice premium at auction. Remember, always check your change and keep your eye on the condition of the coins you come across. You never know when you might find a gem like this. If you enjoyed this video and learned something new about the 1997 Washington quarter, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more coin collecting tips and auction updates. Until next time, happy collecting.